Some stories don't just live on the page, they crash through it. They strike like lightning and leave behind the burn of something unforgettable. They're not meant to be read, they're meant to be survived. And Onyx Storm, the explosive. Continuation of Rebecca Yarros' Dragon Rider saga is exactly that. Welcome, traveler, to a world where the sky is a battlefield, where love is war, where power doesn't just corrupt, it chooses. This is Navarre, a kingdom trembling on the edge of collapse. But more than that, this is the journey of a girl, Violet Sorrengail, who was never supposed to make it out of the first year alive. And yet, she did. She survived the brutal parapet, the death of friends, the betrayal of lovers, and the agony of truth. But survival, as Violet quickly learns, is not the end of the story. It's just the storm's eye, a breath of silence before the winds rise again. If. Fourth Wing introduced us to the ironclad traditions of Beziath War College. An iron flame shattered every illusion about loyalty and power. Onyx Storm does something deeper. It doesn't just raise the stakes, it rips the foundation out from under them. This is the moment where the dragons grow silent. This is the moment where the kingdom fractures. This is the moment where Violet Sorrengail must choose not just who she is, but who she will become. Rebecca. Yarros, the author behind this phenomenon, has always known how to lace her stories with both fire and tenderness. Her characters bleed, they doubt, they fall apart, and they rebuild. She doesn't write heroes, she writes survivors. And in a world of Venin, shadows, and conscription, distinction matters more than ever. Yarros has already redefined what fantasy romance can look like for a new generation, fast-paced, emotionally raw, and deeply character-driven. But in Onyx Storm, she deepens the cut. The stakes aren't just military or magical anymore. They're moral, psychological, intimate, because the real storm isn't happening outside, the gates of Beziath. It's happening inside Violet's heart. At the center of it all is the bond. It's a sacred, soul-searing tether between rider and dragon. For Violet, it means two things. Tyrn, the ancient, brutal storm dragon whose power rivals gods, and Andarna, the golden lightning worm. Young, curious, and devastatingly rare. These dragons aren't just beasts. They are mirrors of their riders' truths. And sometimes, those truths are darker than fire. But Violet also carries another bond. One not chosen by dragons, but by longing, fear, and the hunger for something. Real, in a world built on lies, Xaden Ryerson, son of a traitor, leader of a rebellion. The man who shattered her heart and stood beside her at the gates of war. Their love is the kind that either saves kingdoms or burns them down. And when love walks beside grief, when duty collides with rebellion, and power dances with corruption, that's when storms are born. The world of Onyx Storm is one where nothing is sacred. Oaths are broken. Truths are buried beneath centuries of deceit, Venin. Once a whispered myth, now move in daylight. Magic, once trusted, now twists into a poison. And as Violet's abilities grow more unstable, the lines between savior and monster begin to blur. This book is about choices, hard ones. About leadership that costs everything. It's about family bonds, not of blood, but of sacrifice. It's about fighting not just for a kingdom, but for the truth. And in every chapter, you'll feel the tension tighten. You'll hear the beating of wings. Above, you'll smell ash in the air. And you'll wonder, how do you survive a storm that was born inside you? So as we step into this breakdown, chapter by chapter, prepare for more than a simple retelling. You're not just listening to a summary, you're stepping into battle. You'll ride with Violet through ancient ruins and treacherous missions. You'll face down kings and question the very nature of magic. You'll witness friendships forged in fire and shattered in betrayal. You'll fall in love. You'll lose. You'll rise. This story isn't just about dragons or power. About what we become when the world demands we burn. This is Onyx Storm, where lightning strikes the heart. Every wing beat echoes with revolution. Now, are you ready to fly? The storm begins not with thunder, but with silence. Violet Sorrengail stands in the wreckage of everything she once believed. Her brother Brennan is alive. The War College, the government, the leadership she pledged her loyalty to, all of It built on a foundation of carefully stacked lies. The aftermath of Iron Flame still lingers like ash in the air. Her body is aching, her soul heavier than ever. But the real weight pressing against her chest isn't just from wounds or revelation, it's from what, who she has left behind. Xaden Ryerson, the man she loves, the man who broke her trust, not out of cruelty, but because of truths. Too sharp to speak aloud, secrets about the Venin, about his powers, about what they both might become. And yet, despite everything, she can't stop loving him. In the stillness of morning, Violet awakens in the rebel stronghold deep within thee. Mountains, a place where riders who defy the crown have carved out a hidden life. Brennan's there, watching over her. Tyrn and Andarna are nearby, the bond between dragon and rider pulsing like a second heartbeat. But nothing feels steady, nothing feels safe. She's still recovering from the battle that nearly killed her. The chaos of the wards collapsing, the treachery of the leadership at Basgiath, the confrontation with her mother. Violet is stitched together in more ways than one. Her physical injuries run deep, but they pale compared to the emotional fracture splitting her down the middle. The rebels welcome her with wary eyes. The symbol of the very system they've spent years fighting against. Even if she's bled for them, even if she's lost for them. Trust is not freely given here, Xaden. He meanwhile is distant, not gone, but absent in all the ways that matter. He avoids her gaze. He speaks in clipped tones. He disappears for hours, reappearing with shadows clinging to his boots. The man she once burned for is now a walking enigma. The silence between them says more than words ever could. But Violet can't afford the luxury of heartbreak because the Venin are gathering, those twisted magic welders, corrupted by their insatiable hunger for raw power, are no longer lurking in the dark. Their numbers are growing. Their attacks are more coordinated. And the protective wards that once kept Navarre safe are failing, shattering like glass under. The weight of old magic. The dragons sense it. They are restless. Even Andarna, still growing, emits pulses of unease. And Tyrn, old, wise, ferocious, is more vigilant than ever. He warns Violet, this isn't just about kingdoms or rebellion anymore. It's about survival. But before Violet can process the mounting danger, she's summoned General Melgren, one of the rebel commanders and a former ally of her brother, wants answers. Why did the wards collapse? What did she see? Mother tell her in those final moments before the battle turned? Violet shares everything she knows, or almost everything. The grief of watching her mother fall. The horror of realizing their enemies are not monsters from stories, but real and terrifyingly human. But she guards one thing close. Her fear that the magic within her is changing, that it might be slipping beyond her control. There's something different now. A sharpness, a crackle beneath her skin that wasn't there before. It whispers at the edges of her consciousness, calling out in battle, in fear, in pain. And the only one who seems to understand is Xaden. One night, unable to sleep, Violet finds him training in the clearing outside the stronghold. The moonlight dances across his skin, shadows swirling at his fingertips. He looks like something carved out of war and regret. They talk briefly, tense words, half-truths, unspoken longing. Xaden tries to warn her. The path ahead isn't just dangerous, it's damning. Powers like theirs come with consequences. And the more they use them, the more they risk losing control. But Violet doesn't want warnings. She wants truth, and she wants him. Yet just as they begin to edge towards something real again, the world crashes back in. Scout returns with grim news. A Venin force has been spotted near the western border. They're not attacking villages anymore. They're targeting strongholds. The council assembles. Riders, wielders, strategists, all gathered in tense silence. Brennan stands, eyes flickering toward his sister. We're no longer the hidden resistance, he says. They know where we are, which means we either scatter or we fight. It's a call to war. It's not just survival, not just protection. A full-blown retaliation, but they can't win without Violet. Her power, still unstable, still frightening, may be their only chance against the Venin's raw magic. She's the storm in the center of the battlefield, and everyone knows. It's so Violet makes her choice. She steps forward, voice steady, eyes hard. Then we fight. But we do it smart, do it together, and we do it knowing what's at stake. The room holds its breath, and Tyrn, above them, roars. The storm has begun to rise. In the final moments of the chapter, Violet and Xaden prepare for departure. The rebel force will split part to hold the stronghold. Part 2, intercept the Venin. She saddles Tyrn, lightning already humming at her fingertips. She feels it now, the terrifying potential inside her. Not just to protect, but to destroy. As they take to the sky, Violet looks down at the mountain base. The people she's chosen to fight for, the man beside her, and the ghosts that ride in her shadow. The wind howls around her. And for the first time since everything fell apart, she feels it. Not just fear, not just grief, purpose. There are moments when the silence between two people becomes louder than any battle cry. Violet rides high above the clouds, the wind screaming past as Tyrn glides with thunder in his wings. But even the rush of flight can't drown out the ache in her chest, the echo of words unsaid, and wounds still bleeding beneath armor. Xaden flies beside her, shadow trailing in his wake like a living thing.
Ow.
His presence is steady, fierce, magnetic as ever, but his silence, it's colder than. The wind up here, after all they've shared, all they've bled for, fought for, survived, Violet wonders. When did they become strangers? Below them, the rebel unit prepares for impact. Scouts have confirmed it. A Venin attack force is making its way through the western cliffs, headed straight for the outer villages. Their pattern is shifting, more organized, more deliberate. They're not just feeding anymore, they're hunting, and worse, they're coordinating. This is no longer a scattered threat. This is strategy. The riders land near a cliffside outpost, what remains of a once vibrant town now used as a makeshift. Forward camp, the air smells of smoke and magic. Charred trees line the perimeter. Signs of a Venin skirmish are fresh, scorched earth, shattered stone. The unmistakable imprint of power where nature recoiled. Violet dismounts, her joints aching, pulse still electric from the flight. Tyrn lowers his great head and exhales. A rumble of warning. They're close. Xaden is already issuing orders, his tone clipped but effective. He slips into the role of commander with terrifying ease. The rebel riders respect him not just because of his lineage, or because of his powers, but because he never asks anything of them he wouldn't do himself. Violet watches him from across the campfire that night. He doesn't look at her, doesn't speak to her, and it burns. Not because she wants affection, but because she needs truth. Brennan joins her. His expression weary but watchful. He's noticed it too, the tension between them. He doesn't pry, but he does warn her. If you're going to lead, he says gently, you'll have to learn how to carry silence. But don't let it carry you. It's a simple sentence. But it cuts deep. Because Violet knows exactly what silence can do. It festers. It distorts. It kills what it once protected. The next morning, the unit moves out. The terrain grows steep, the shadows thicker. Andarna scouts ahead, darting through canyons with a speed that belies her size. She returns with a vision burned. Into her rider's mind, a Venin encampment in the heart of the ravine, pulsing with dark energy. The Venin are performing some kind of ritual, binding raw magic into weapons, forging blades from shadow and fury. Their power is evolving. Violet and the squad move into position. But something feels wrong. Tyrn growls low in his throat. Sound Violet has come to fear more than any scream. It means something unseen, something ancient. Something wrong there. Ambushed from the cliffs above, the Venin descend, not mindless, but tactical. They move in formations. They speak in tongues Violet has never heard before. One of them, tall, cloaked, with eyes like cracked obsidian, steps forward and smiles. You don't belong to them anymore, he says. You're more like us than you think. Then he lifts his hand, and the sky fractures. Violet reacts on instinct. Lightning explodes from her fingertips, tearing the air apart. It's too much more than she's ever wielded. The backlash knocks her to her knees. Tyrn roars, flames spewing across the cliffs. Xaden launches into battle, shadows enveloping him like armor. The fight is brutal, fast, terrifying. Violet watches as one of the rebels is impaled, a young rider named Ira, barely older than her. She screams, runs, blasts the Venin responsible with a wave of force so strong the entire canyon shakes. But then, the world tilts. Her power lashes back at her. She collapses. Tyrn shields her with his wing as Xaden sprints across the field. Lifting her into his arms, for a heartbeat their eyes meet, and everything else vanishes. Later, in the medic tent, Violet wakes to the sharp scent of herbs and the steady throb of pain behind her eyes. She's not alone. Xaden is beside her. Finally, he doesn't speak right away. Neither does she. But then, it breaks. "I thought I was protecting you," he says quietly, "by keeping things from you. About the Venin, about me." Violet watches. His walls are cracked now. Not shattered, but human. "I know," she whispers. The weight of silence begins to shift. Xaden confesses. The truth, his powers are growing harder to control. The shadows used to obey. Now they whisper. They hunger. The more he uses them, the more he feels them carving into who he is. And Violet realizes it's not just her who's afraid of becoming something else. It's him. Two, they talk long into the night, about everything, about nothing. It's about before. And when Violet finally falls asleep, it's with her fingers lightly brushing his. Not a promise, but a beginning. The next day, they return to the cliff to bury their dead. Ira's dragon keens in the sky, a sound of pure mourning. Violet stands at the edge of the gravesite, hair whipping in the wind. The grief is raw, but beneath it, there's something else. A flicker of resolve. These aren't random attacks. The Venin are evolving, strategizing, and they're targeting riders like her. Why? Because she's growing more powerful, because she's slipping closer to them. Brennan believes the answer lies in the Scar Archive, ancient texts buried beneath the foundations of Basgiath.
Violet, yes.
Isn't ready to return there. Not yet. But she knows one thing. The weight of silence has lifted. And in its place, a rising storm. Power is rarely given. It's earned painfully, deliberately, and with scars that never quite fade. Violet returns to Basgiath, with Tyrn's wings stretched wide above her, and Andarna trailing behind like lightning wrapped in gold. She never thought she'd come back here so soon. Not after what happened, the collapse of the wards, the betrayal by leadership, the near destruction of everything she believed in. But this isn't a return to comfort, it's a confrontation. Basgiath still stands somehow, though the air around the War College feels different now. Heavier, strained. The loss of the protective wards has turned once confident faces into cautious ones. The building's bones groan with old magic. And Violet wonders how long it'll take before the ground itself rises up to protest the lies it's held for so long. She's not alone on this return. Xaden is here. Brennan walks at her side. The air between the three of them is tense, one filled with decisions unspoken in paths yet undecided. The world is splintering, and the people who were once her enemies may be her only allies now. Inside the main hall, Professor Corey waits. Relic of a different era. The kind of instructor who speaks in riddles and teaches in riddles, still sharper. His presence is unsettling, his knowledge vast, doesn't offer greetings. He simply states, "The archive is open again. We'll need it." Corey has always seen more than he lets on. Violet suspects he knew about the Venin long before. They stepped out of myth and into fire. But now, his lessons are direct and far more dangerous. He leads them to the Scar Archive. It's not just a library. It's a vault of memory carved into stone. Sealed beneath magic older than the kingdom itself. Tomes whisper with enchantments. Scrolls glow with forgotten language. Violet feels something stir inside her as they descend. Something ancient, something awake. Corey's lesson that day isn't a lecture, it's a challenge he places. Before them, a map not of Navarre, but of the ley lines that run beneath it. Currents of power, lifelines of magic, and Violet learns that the wards were never just walls. They were veins. Cut them, and the body bleeds. Venin had been severing those veins for years. Quietly, strategically. The collapse of the ward was not a failure. It was the final stroke of a long hidden war. Brennan clenches his jaw. Violet studies the map. Xaden says nothing, but his eyes are locked on the pattern forming across the page. They're creating something, Corey says softly. A fracture or a gateway. Possibly both. Violet's pulse skips. The Venin aren't just tearing down protections. They're trying to open something, and whatever it is, wasn't meant to be unleashed. Training resumes. The cadets who remain at Basgiath are different now. The reckless arrogance is gone. In its place, fear and fury. Violet returns to the sparring ring, not as a student, but as something else. Something between warrior and weapon. Professor Carr, the combat trainer who once doubted her at every turn, watches her carefully now. He doesn't mock, he instructs. Violet has earned even his respect, a currency more valuable than any medal. In one lesson, she's pitted against 3 cadets. Real weapons. Real stakes. No magic allowed, she wins. Barely her muscles scream. Her lungs burn. But she stands at the end, blade trembling in her hand, and the crowd around her is silent, not in disbelief, but reverence. She is no longer the fragile girl who was forced across the parapet. She is lightning made flesh. But she's still learning. In Corey's private session, Violet is pushed deeper into her magic. He urges her to reach for it, not in fear, but in command. He shows her ancient texts on elemental wielders. She's not just a channel for power, she's a conduit. And if she doesn't learn to harness it fully, it will consume her at first. She struggles. The magic resists her grip, lashing out in wild bursts or vanishing when she needs it most. But one night, frustrated and furious after a sparring match where she nearly injured a friend, she takes Tyrn to the edge of the cliffs and screams into the sky, and the sky answers, lightning cracks. Not from storm clouds, but from her will. A fork of white-hot power slams into the ground, shattering rock, splitting air. Tyrn doesn't flinch. He watches with something between pride and warning. You're close, he growls in her mind. No. But power without control is destruction. Choose wisely. Back at the archive, Violet finds something buried, a scroll sealed in a forgotten language. With Corey's help, she translates pieces of it. It speaks of a rider who once held 2 bonds like her. One dragon of storm, one of time, a girl caught between realms, and it ends with a single line. She opened the gate. And the sky has never been the same. Violet's hands tremble as she reads it. She's not the first. Andarna isn't just rare, she's prophesied. That night, Violet dreams of a world not unlike her own, but twisted. A version of Basgiath in ruins. Tyrn. Slain Xaden, gone. And Andarna, standing at the edge of a rift in the sky, whispering her name. She wakes in a cold sweat. The next day, Brennan pulls her aside. A decision must be made. There's a rebel cell in Velis Reach, a small, strategic outpost that just went silent. No word, no scouts, no survivors. It's too important to ignore. It's too dangerous to send a full force. He wants Violet to lead a reconnaissance mission. Xaden predictably protests, but Brennan is firm. And Violet, after everything she's learned, agrees. It's time to test more than her power. It's time to test her leadership. Xaden gives her a dagger before she leaves, the same one she used to cut herself, free during the rebellion's breakout. She looks at him, their hands brushing. "You still don't trust me?" she asks quietly. He meets her gaze. "I trust you to survive. I just don't trust the cost." They don't kiss. but they don't let go either. The chapter ends with Violet flying toward Velis Reach, her mind a storm of questions. What is the gate? Why is Andarna connected to it? And what will she become if she opens it? The lightning hums beneath her skin. The fire of purpose burns behind her eyes. And for the first time, she's not afraid of her power. She's willing to wield it. There are libraries where stories are preserved, and then there are places like the Scar Archive, where truths are buried. Not every secret wants to be found. As Violet descends into the scar, the fractured scarab-like wound in the earth, miles from Basgiath, wrapped in ruin and myth, she knows this isn't just another mission. This is the origin point. The place where power split from purpose, where the first Venin were made. Velis Reach, the outpost Brennan warned about, was meant to be a simple recon. But what Violet and her squad find is something else entirely. Not destruction, but abandonment. Buildings perfectly intact. No blood, just a stillness that feels too controlled. Land, he circles overhead, uneasy. Andarna presses close to Violet's shoulder, her scales pulsing with anxious light. They step inside the old command tower. Violet runs her hand over a dusty ledger. Ink dried mid-sentence. Sconces burned out. Maps untouched. The outpost didn't fall, it emptied, as if every soul vanished in an instant. Then they hear it whispers, not loud, not close, but curling through the walls like smoke, voices that don't belong to anyone living. Xaden signals for silence. The squad moves with blades drawn, nerves tight as wire. The whispers grow louder, then sharper, until they're not whispers at all, but screams. That's when they find it. The stairwell behind a sealed door, spiral steps carved deep into the earth. It's not on any map, not in any report. The Scar Archive, a place built before Navarre had kings, before the magic was taught, before the dragons chose riders. They descend. The deeper they go, colder the air becomes, not temperature, but energy.
Yeah?
Magic pressed so tightly into the stone that it warps the space around it. Violet feels her own power stir, not awake, but alarmed. They reach the bottom. It's a hall of mirrors, not literal ones, but polished obsidian panels that reflect not light, memory. Across each one, flickering shadows play out moments. In time, past wielders, riders of old, some victorious, others broken. Some familiar Violet watches in silence as one panel shows a young woman with silver eyes holding two dragon bonds, one black, one golden. She looks tired, terrified, and unmistakably like Violet. Andarna hisses. Her claws scrape the stone floor. The reflection shudders, then shifts. The woman opens a book, and the mirror shatters. The obsidian rains down around Violet. And something behind the panel creaks open, a hidden vault. A door pulsing with power and sealed with a language Violet doesn't recognize. Corey appears behind her. No footsteps. No warning. Just there. He's not surprised. In fact, he looks resigned. As if this moment has already happened for him. This place, he says, was the cradle of magic and its grave. Steps forward, laying a hand on the sealed door. It's called the Gate of Soren. Was meant to protect us from ourselves. But power, he says, is clever. It always finds a way. Violet asks what's behind it. Corey hesitates. Then, possibility. And ruin. The squad camps inside the archive for the night. Xaden stays up, watching the vault door. Violet can't sleep. She's drawn to the reflections, the stories playing across the glass like warnings. She sees one of them, a rider walking willingly into the gate. Not fighting, not resisting, offering themselves. When she asks Corey about it, he finally breaks his silence. There was once a wielder whose magic was so strong, it threatened to unravel the balance of everything. She opened the gate not to escape. To contain herself, he looks at Violet. She was not killed. She was sacrificed. To keep the rest of us safe. The implication is clear. The gate is not a weapon. It's a prison. A vault for power that can't or shouldn't be contained anywhere else. Violet reels, Is she destined to be the next sacrifice? Was Andarna's bond more than rare? Was it engineered? Is she part of a prophecy or a plan? Xaden finds her later, curled against the stone wall, staring into nothing. He kneels beside her. "You don't have to carry this alone," he says softly. She looks at him. "But I might have to end it alone." And that silence, that space between them, so often cold, begins to warm. They don't speak of love or fate. They speak of choice. Of the impossible burden of being the answer to a question no one dared ask. Violet admits that something inside her has changed. The more she uses her magic, the more she feels the pull of something ancient, something hungry. Xaden takes her hand. "I'll hold the line," he promises. "Even if it's you, I have to hold it against." By morning, the decision is made. They won't open the gate of Soren. Not yet. Not until they understand more. Violet takes one scroll from the vault, the only one not protected by a magical seal. It's worn, almost disintegrating, but it contains sketches of a familiar sigil, the exact one on Andarna's chest. She hides it in her satchel before the others can see. They leave the Scar Archive in silence, stepping into the light of dawn with the knowledge that the war is no longer about land, or even survival. It's about what should be allowed to exist, and, more urgently, what shouldn't, as they take flight again. Violet feels the weight of the truth settling in. She may not just be fighting a war, she may be the battleground itself, and the storm inside her is beginning to rise again. Some powers are gifted, others are stolen, but the rarest kind are born in the crucible of unbearable choice. Violet flies hard and fast away from the Scar Archive, the scroll hidden beneath her armor like a pulse she can't ignore. The images, etched into that brittle parchment, still burn behind her eyes. Andarna's sigil? The Gate of Soren, the ancient rider with two bonds and haunted eyes. She doesn't know what frightens her more, that she might become that woman, or that she already is. The world below looks unchanged. Hills roll in peaceful rhythm, rivers shimmer in the morning light. But beneath that illusion, Navarre is splintering. The Venin have accelerated their attacks, and even the strongest strongholds have begun to fall. And while the wards may be gone, the danger isn't just from without, it's from within. Violet's power is growing, and it's no longer asking permission. Back at the rebel camp, things are unraveling. Scouts report that several Dragon's Elder Ones have refused to take new riders. One has even vanished completely, abandoning its post near the eastern border. Dragons do not run, not unless something ancient has stirred. Tyrn confirms it with a silent growl. There is unrest among his kind. Old magic has woken, and not even dragons are immune to its dread. Violet meets with Brennan, who's now acting as the rebels' de facto strategist. He lays out a map, strewn with reports, scorch marks, and torn parchment. One word keeps repeating: corruption. Villages swallowed overnight. Crops turned to ash. Entire squads paralyzed by unseen forces. The Venin are no longer hiding, they're testing, probing, practicing, and the terrifying realization: they may not be the endgame. They may only be the beginning. Violet studies the pattern of attacks and sees it a spiral, not random, not erratic, intentional, leading somewhere to her or to the gate. Brennan doesn't answer, but he gives her a new directive: lead a squad into the ruined border city of Kurth. Once a thriving trade hub, it's now a dead zone, choked in fog and whispered about like a cursed place. No official reconnaissance team has returned from it in months. Violet volunteers before he can even ask, because if the Venin are spiraling inward, she wants to know what lies at the center. Xaden insists on going with her. They don't argue this. Time, their connection has grown brittle in the fire of so many secrets, but something tender still flickers beneath the ash. It's not the naive love of before. It's warforged. Fragile, yes, but tempered in truth now. On the eve of the mission, they find a quiet moment on a high ledge overlooking the valley. The moon hangs full. Andarna dozes, curled at Violet's feet, golden scales pulsing like a heartbeat. Xaden speaks first. There's something I didn't tell you. When I was bound to shadows, I saw things, not just memories, possibilities, versions of us, of you and one. You opened the gate. Violet's breath catches. I didn't stop you, he says. I followed, and we both disappeared. They don't say anything after that, not for a long time. But their fingers find each other again in the dark. No promises. Lies. Just a fragile thread that holds. The journey to Kurth is brutal. The land is unnatural. Magic saturates the soil. Time bends strangely here. Hours stretch and contract. At one point, Andarna vanishes mid-flight and reappears an hour later. Terrified but unharmed, Tyrn confirms it. This land was once part of the original ley line convergence. The same lines that power the dragons, the same lines the Venin are. Bleeding dry, they arrive at the city ruins at dusk, and it's quiet. Too quiet. Buildings stand hollow. It's untouched by weather, as if frozen in time. The market stall still holds fruit that hasn't rotted. A child's toy sits in the dust. No signs of struggle, just stillness. The squad fans out. Violet moves toward the center of the city, drawn by a pull in her chest, electric, magnetic, inevitable. She finds the temple, or what's left of it, stone columns cracked by lightning. Dais scorched black by. Fire. And on the walls, carvings deep, violent. In the same language as the scroll from the Scar archive. She runs her fingers over one, and suddenly, she feels it, not a vision, not a memory. A reverberation, a scream of power, still echoing. From long ago, this place wasn't just destroyed, it was used. Used to open something, a portal, gate. A tear in the world, she staggers back. Breath ragged, and then the fog rises. They're not alone. Venin emerge from the mists like nightmares given form. Their faces are human, but their eyes, hollow, hungry, and aware. One of them steps forward. Tall, scarred, his magic crackling like a twisted mirror of Violet's lightning. You're close to it, aren't you? He says, I can smell it on you. She draws power instinctively. Lightning arcs between her hands. The Venin smiles. We've been waiting. The battle explodes. Tyrn bellows overhead. Darna vanishes and reappears like a flash bomb, distracting and disrupting. The riders engage, but the Venin are stronger here. Faster, more organized, and using magic in terrifyingly creative ways. One conjures a wall of screaming voices. Another bends gravity, slamming a rider into the earth. Violet unleashes a blast of lightning so powerful it turns the temple into a crater. But it's not enough. The lead Venin advances. Violet raises her blade. He doesn't fight her. He studies her. You'll open it, he whispers, stepping into the lightning, because you have to. That's what you were made for. Violet doesn't know what that means, but she knows how. To end him. And she does, with a burst of power that blinds everyone around her. When the light clears, the Venin are gone, not dead. Gone, as if erased. After the battle, Xaden finds her collapsed on the dais, hands smoking, eyes wide and wet with rage. He helps her to her feet. She's shaky. Did you hear what he said? She asks about me. Xaden nods. And then he says the one thing that cuts through the storm. You are not what they made you, she closes. Her eyes and the storm inside her stills, just for a moment. They leave Kurth in ruins. But with new understanding, the Venin don't want to kill Violet. They want her to fulfill something, a prophecy, a curse, or an invitation. Back at camp, she spreads the scrolls across the war table. Brennan helps her decode another passage. One word repeats again and again, convergence. Whatever the Venin are building, whatever Violet is becoming, it all leads to that. A place, a moment, a choice. Even the fiercest beasts bow to something greater than fear. For dragons, it's prophecy. For Violet, it's what she's becoming. The mission to Kurth leaves a burn beneath her skin that doesn't fade. The battle was one thing brutal, precise, horrifying. But it was the message that lingers. The Venin didn't try to kill her. They tested her, welcomed her. And worst of all, they believed she'd come around. She sits alone in the rebel war room days later, scrolls and fragments of prophecy splayed out before her like shattered glass. Her fingers trace symbols over and over, etching them into memory, hoping they'll make sense if she just keeps looking. But the more she learns, the more the pieces refuse to fit together. Every clue points toward something old, something waiting. Convergence. The gate dual-bonded riders. Magic that defies natural law. It's not coincidence. It's construction. And Violet, she's the keystone. Outside, the dragons are restless. Tyrn hasn't spoken in hours. Not in her mind, not aloud. His silence is eerie, his usual booming. Presence replaced by something tighter. Focused. Andarna paces restlessly in the paddock, her scales flickering with static. Her golden eyes flash toward the mountains with alarming frequency. She doesn't speak either. When Violet finally approaches them, Tyrn lifts his head and growls. Not at her, but at the sky. We need to talk, she says aloud. Tyrn huffs. And in her mind, his voice finally rumbles through. We need to go. Brennan and Xaden meet her in the hall moments later, both already gearing up. The dragons know something, feel something. And that alone is cause for immediate alarm. They don't sense danger the way humans do. They anticipate it, and right now, they're trembling. Tyrn urges Violet to mount before she can argue. Andarna vanishes with a flash, already airborne before Violet's boots are in the stirrups. There's no clear mission, no orders, just a direction. North, toward the ancient nesting. Cliffs of the original bonded dragons. A place Tyrn has never spoken of, a place even Brennan only knows from stories. It's sacred, untouched, and strictly forbidden. Because it's not just a sanctuary, it's a seal. They fly for hours, the wind growing colder, the sky darker. When they reach the edge of the cliffs, Violet sees it, a tear in the mountain, not a cave. A wound. Tyrn lands hard, too hard. He's tense beneath her, his wings flaring with defiance even as he lowers his head in deference. That's when Violet realizes he's not alone. Other dragons begin to land, silent, massive, ancient. Some she doesn't recognize scales like obsidian, others rippling with green-gold hues. They don't speak. They don't roar. They bow to her. Violet dismounts, heart pounding. Andarna stays back, watching. From the mouth of the cave emerges a figure, old, cloaked, but unmistakably dragonborn. Not a rider, something else. A keeper, her name is Cirilla, and her voice is like gravel wrapped in thunder. She doesn't waste time. You were never meant to open it, she says. Violet doesn't need to ask what it is. The gate, the convergence. The destiny her powers are spiraling toward. You carry two bloodlines, Cirilla continues. Storm and time. Past and present. It was never meant to coexist. She gestures toward Andarna. Her kind were meant to be kept asleep. It's too powerful. Too wild. But yours woke her. Violet's mind races. What happens if I keep bonding with her? If we both grow? Cirilla's eyes turn to flame for a moment. Not metaphor. Literal heat flickers in them. You become the key. And keys, Violet knows. Open doors or lock them forever. Cirilla leads her deep into the cave. What lies within is not just history. It's prophecy, carved in dragonfire across the walls. Stories of riders who tried to harness both time and storm, all of them failed. All of them consumed, but one survived long enough to choose. A woman whose magic threatened to unravel the continent. She opened the gate and disappeared. Violet stares at the final inscription. The last words are burned away as if even dragons were afraid of what came next. Tyrant speaks then, at last. You are the second to carry this mark. The first is lost beyond the veil. Andarna's voice chimes in after, soft and mournful. But I remember her. She was kind, brave, terrified. Violet turns to Brennan and Xaden, both of whom followed her inside. They've seen enough to understand this is more than magic. More than war. It's cycle. One that is repeating through her. back at camp. News arrives like a blade to the heart. The city of Ader has fallen. Not to siege, to collapse. The ground simply gave way, swallowed by energy drawn from beneath. A ley line node fractured, thousands gone, no survivors, just a crater humming with residual power. Corey sends word. It's starting. The Venin are activating something. Tapping directly into the lines now. Whatever convergence they've been engineering, it's nearing completion. And Violet. She's running out of time. That night she dreams of the gate again. But this time, she walks through it. And what's on the other side isn't fire or void. It's herself. Older. Stronger. Unrecognizable. Eyes like storm. Hands dripping with light. And a smile not cruel, but tired. A warning. Violet wakes with a scream. Xaden is already there, catching her before she falls. I saw her again, she whispers me, but not me. He brushes her hair back, voice quiet. What did she want? Violet's throat tightens. To survive me? The chapter closes as Violet gathers the leadership. Dragons. Riders. Rebels. She places the ancient scroll down in the center of the table. We've been preparing for a war, she says, but what's coming is worse. It's a reckoning. But I don't know if we win. She looks around the room. But I do know this. We don't wait for it to find us. She nods to Tyrion. We go to it. To chase truth, you must walk willingly into the unknown. But what if the unknown has teeth? Violet leads the charge north, not toward any battlefield or fortress, but toward the place no rider dares name aloud. The Vale, a stretch of no man's. Land long believed to be cursed, where compasses fail and magic collapses in on itself. No maps, no markers. Just whispers of riders who entered and never returned. But that's where the spiral leads. The ley lines, the Venin's corruption, the pulse beneath Violet's skin, all of it points here, like gravity, like fate. The dragons are uneasy. Tyrion, usually unshakable, keeps his wings tight to his sides. Andarna flies higher, more erratically, her golden shimmer flashing between clouds like a lightning strike trying to outrun itself. No one speaks much. Even Xaden is quieter than usual. Not cold, just waiting. As if something sacred is about to be broken. They cross into the Vale at dawn. The moment they do, the world shifts. It's subtle at first, colors too vibrant, sounds too sharp. The wind doesn't blow, it presses, and Violet's magic whines. A high-pitched hum beneath her bones, like it's trying to warn her of something it doesn't have words for. The further they go, the stranger things become. Birds freeze in midair, trees flicker in and out of existence. One rider swears they saw their childhood home on a distant hill, and when they approached, it vanished. Another bursts into tears without knowing why. And Violet, she sees herself, not in a mirror, but across the ridge. Another version of her, standing still, eyes locked, then gone. The Vale is not just a place, it's a threshold between what is, what was, and what could be. And it's thinning. They make camp near a broken watchtower, long decayed and half swallowed by earth. Violet gathers the squad for a war briefing, but her voice trembles against the weight of the air. The scrolls say the Vale was the last place. The first dual-bonded rider was seen, and now Violet knows why she never returned. The ground here remembers her, and it's remembering Violet. Corey appears that evening, not riding, not walking, but stepping out of a fold in space, as if he was always here. He says little, but what he does say is enough to chill even Turn's ancient bones. The convergence is no longer theory. Venin have opened the first gate, not the Gate of Sword. It's but a smaller one, a crack, tearing through the ley lines like splitting skin. It's unstable. And the only way to stop it is to find the source of the spell and destroy it before it completes its final cycle. They have one chance. If they fail, the magic of this realm will collapse, not vanish, twist. What remains will belong not to humans, not to dragons, but to whatever has been whispering through the One. Veil for centuries, Violet volunteers, not because she's brave, because she knows. The Venin built their spell around her magic, She might be the only one who can unmake it. She goes alone. Tyrn protests. Andarna protests harder. Xaden doesn't say a word, but his shadow refuses to leave her side until she turns to him and says, "If I come back, I'll need you to see me, even if I'm different." His jaw flexes. "Then, I already do." She enters the breach at nightfall. No landmarks. No stars. Just the faint pulsing hum of magic guiding her deeper into the storm of nothingness. The world twists around her. She sees memories out of order, her mother holding her as a baby, her first flight, her final words to Dane, the night she bonded in Andarna. The moment she thought Xaden was gone, they blur, then shift. Suddenly, she's in them, walking through a hallway in Basgiath, but every face is blank, sitting beside Liam on a battlefield that never happened, holding Brennan's hand as he dies, a future that hasn't come to pass. The veil is showing her what could be, what might be, what will be if she opens the gate, or doesn't. And at the center of it all, herself bound in lightning and shadow, standing before a mirror that doesn't reflect. A gate, circular and humming, stands behind her. It's carved into nothing, yet it pulls everything toward it. This is where the spell is rooted. This is the center of the spiral. She steps forward. The gate pulses once. Her magic screams a warning, a command. She presses her hand to the center sigil and feels every version of herself scream back. The world collapses. She wakes in a crater, breath heaving, skin scorched. The gate is shattered, the magic contained. But so is something else. Violet can feel it in her blood, a fragment, a sliver. The spell didn't just stop, it attached. She didn't destroy the convergence, she redirected it into herself. She hears voices, Brennan's, Corey's, Xaden's calling from the edges, but she can't move. She's suspended in a silence that feels like drowning. And then, an RNA. Her small, golden body presses against Violet's chest. Her eyes close. And she gives something away. A flicker of her own power. A piece of time, and Violet breathes again when she wakes. Days have passed. Xaden is there. Tyrn and Arna. So is Cirilla. You didn't stop it, the ancient dragon woman says. You became its prison. Violet sits up slowly, body weak, but buzzing with a dangerous hum. The dragons are watching her differently, and not with fear, but reverence. She is no longer just a rider. She is a vessel. The chapter closes with Violet looking into the distance, toward the next spiral forming. Because this wasn't the end. This was the first breach. And the next gate will not be so easily closed. Some bonds are forged in battle, others in blood. But the most dangerous bonds, the ones that can unmake you, are those forged in choice, consequence. Violet's return from the veil isn't triumphant. It's quiet. There's no applause, no celebration. Only the hush of wary eyes watching her with a reverence that borders on fear. She was gone for 3 days. And when she came back, she wasn't the same. The lightning still hums beneath her skin, but now it's laced with something. Colder, older, a new thread woven into her magic, the fragment of the spell she redirected from the gate. A shard of ancient power she doesn't understand and can barely contain. Tyrn walks close beside her, wings flared slightly protective. Andarna doesn't speak, she just watches. Every movement she makes is precise, calculated, as if even the smallest action could tip the balance. Because Violet is now a walking contradiction, a rider meant to protect, and a vessel meant to contain. Brennan calls an emergency council the next morning, not just riders and rebels, dragons too. Cirilla stands at the head of the table, her presence enough to silence even the most arrogant generals. Violet sits in the center, not by rank, by necessity. She is no longer just a participant in this war. She's the axis on which it turns. Corey speaks first. The spell is fractured. The Venin's convergence failed, but not fully. He looks directly at Violet. Their connection to the ley lines was interrupted, not severed. They will try again. And next time they won't build around you. Cirilla agrees. They'll build through you. Everyone falls into silence. Violet leans forward, voice hoarse. Then we make sure there isn't a next time. The next mission is the most dangerous yet. The rebellion has learned the location of a major Venin stronghold, Mirador, a fortress carved into the cliffs of the eastern range. Unmarked on maps, shielded by storms. It's believed to be one of the earliest places where magic was ever taught. And according to Corey, it's also where the next convergence is being prepared. The dragons call it the wound that waits. No one has ever returned from it. But that's where Violet must go before they leave. Violet confronts Xaden, not with anger. With truth, I need to know, she says, if this changes how you see me. If you look at me and see a weapon, a risk, something to be used. He steps toward her. I see you, he says. The girl who flew into death for strangers, the woman who holds power no one else would survive. The only one who scares the Venin without even trying. He pauses. And if you do burn the world down, I'll still follow you through the ashes. They don't kiss, they collide. Not just bodies, but broken edges finding their match. And in that moment, Violet isn't a vessel. She's just a woman trying to hold on to something real before everything unravels again. They ride to Mirador. With a dozen hand-picked riders and dragons, Terran leads the flight, his wings blotting out the sun. Andarna follows like a glint of dawn trailing through storm clouds the closer they get. The more their senses distort, time folds in on itself. Voices echo before they're spoken, even there. Thoughts bleed together, one rider panics, the others feel it. The fortress looms ahead, carved directly into a mountain that hums with magic. Not just current magic, stored magic. It's as if the mountain itself were feeding on it, and in the center of the highest spire. A beacon of energy. Violet recognizes it immediately. It's a convergence point. Second gate. The assault begins at nightfall. Dragons swoop, fire rains, riders clash in the air. The Venin are ready armed not just with power, but with creatures twisted by it. Shadowborn beasts with too many limbs, too many eyes. They move like memory and strike like prophecy. Violet fights harder than ever before. Not for glory, for containment. Because if the convergence completes, the ley lines will twist again. And this time, it won't just be power, they bleed. It will be reality. She and Xaden breach the inner sanctum. Corey and Brennan fight beside them. Walls bend, always scream, and gravity flickers and pulses. The fortress doesn't want them inside, but they press on, and in the central chamber, they find it. The next gate, fully formed, humming, waiting. And beside it, not a Venin, but a human. A young woman, pale, calm. I was like you once, she says softly to Violet. Afraid, powerful, chosen. Violet lifts her blade. The woman doesn't flinch. I opened the first gate. I gave myself to it. And I survived. Violet lowers the blade slightly. You're the rider from the scrolls? The woman nods, and you are the next. But I'm not here to stop you, she smiles. I'm here to free you. Then she vanishes. Not with a spell. With a pulse. The gate begins to crackle. The convergence pulses faster. Corey shouts something Violet can't hear. Tyrn roars above, unable to enter. Andarna flashes into the room and slams into Violet's side. The gate is calling to her again, and this time, she answers. Violet throws everything she has at it. Lightning time, memory. Her bond with Andarna flickers. Tyrn screams in her mind. Her blood burns. She can feel herself coming apart, not dying, splitting, into what she is and what she could be. It's unbearable. But then Xaden is there, not fighting, holding her, anchoring her. I see you, he says again. Don't let it take you. She grabs the convergence by force, magic screaming, soul, unraveling, and with Andarna's power, she pulls back. The gate doesn't close, it implodes. The chamber collapses. Everything goes dark. Violet wakes in the rubble alive, whole but different. The shard of the spell is gone, or rather, integrated. She no longer carries a fragment. She is the convergence now. Every ley line hums beneath her feet. Every dragon looks to her like flame to oxygen, the Venin. Stronghold has been destroyed, but a final message was etched into the wall before. It fell, "You are not the end, Violet Sorrengail. You are the beginning." Some victories don't feel like triumph. They feel like warning shots across the skin of fate, whispers that the real war hasn't even started yet. Violet emerges from the ruins of Meridor not as a champion, but as something heavier. Changed, she walks slower now, not from injury, but from gravity. The air around her listens. Magic doesn't simply respond to her will anymore, it anticipates it. The ley lines tug at her every step, vibrating faintly like an invisible thread spun from ancient power and bound directly to her soul. She hasn't become a god, but she is no longer just human. The others notice. Corey watches her with careful reverence. Brennan stares like he's studying a history book, still being written. And Xaden. He sees it too, but he doesn't flinch. He stays close, not possessive, not afraid. Just present like he knows she needs him not to treat her like she's already gone. And RNA, however, knows the truth. "You're no longer bonded," the young dragon says softly one night. "Not like before. Not like anyone before." Violet nods. It's true. Their bond hasn't broken, but it has shifted, evolved, transcended the original rules. She doesn't draw her magic from Andarna anymore. It flows between them like a closed circuit, a shared current of storm and time. It is beautiful and terrifying, because nothing like this has ever existed, and the rules that once protected the balance of the world no longer apply. Back at the rebel stronghold, a council is called. Every surviving leader is summoned. Every dragon older than 5 centuries. Riders who haven't left their mountains in decades. Even the scribes, long confined to dusty corners, are brought forward. Because what Violet represents is no longer just a military advantage. It's a shift in reality. Corey lays it out plainly. The Venin have not been defeated. The convergence they attempted was only a trial. There are more. Older. Buried. Some may even be open already. He points at Violet. They will come for her. Not to kill, to unlock. Silence. Then Brennan steps forward. Then we make her impossible to open. It sounds like a plan, but Violet hears what he's really saying. We prepare for sacrifice. Later that night, Violet sits alone in the war room. Maps and scrolls spread like scars across the table. She reads every prophecy again, every carving from the Scar Archive, every note Corey translated, every whisper passed down through generations. All of them say the same thing in different words. When lightning holds time, the gate will open. Not may will. She's not a variable. She's a trigger. She doesn't sleep that night. At dawn, she makes a decision. If she's going to be the storm the world breaks on, she'll choose where it happens and how she gathers Brennan, Corey, and Xaden. There's a convergence node hidden beneath Bisgayath, she says. One of the first. The records are buried in the old training grounds. Brennan goes pale. Those were sealed. Not well enough, she replies. If the Venin reach it first, it's over. Corey steps forward. We need to seal it. Or destroy it. Violet shakes her head. No. We need to draw them to it. She places a worn scroll down. A trap. Baited with herself. They return to Bisgayath under cover of storm. The One Sprout Academy is half ruined, now ravaged by rebellion, dragonfire, and neglect. But the foundation still hums, because beneath it lies an ancient chamber, untouched since the first riders wielded magic not just to protect, but to reshape. The last convergence gate, still dormant, still listening. Violet enters alone and waits. Venin arrive at sunset, not in armies, in shadows. They pour from the trees like smoke. Bodies human but wrong, too tall, too thin, too still. The leader steps forward. The same one who tested her in Kurth. His smile is familiar now. Calm, cruel, certain. You're ready, he says. I can feel it. Violet lifts her blade. He doesn't flinch. You don't need to fight, he says. You're all ready. Ours. The gate within you has opened. Then he says it, the final line of the oldest prophecy. The lightning bearer will break the world, or bind it. Violet answers with thunder. The battle explodes. Dragons dive from the sky. Fire rains down. Xaden and Brennan lead the charge, blades flashing. Corey opens a ley line directly into the battlefield, disrupting the Venin spells. With raw, unfiltered energy in Violet, she doesn't fight like a rider anymore. She becomes the storm. Lightning arcs from her hands. Time bends around her like a shield. She sees every strike before it lands, every mistake before it's made. She isn't just fast, she's inevitable. But the Venin are relentless, and the gate within her. The one tied to the node beneath their feet begins to pulse. Faster, faster. She can feel it, cracking. Not the magic, her mind, the spell. Fragment she took from the veil is waking up, calling to something beyond the edges of this world, eh? Final convergence? One that will consume her if she doesn't end this now. Andarna appears mid-battle. Her scales blazing gold. She doesn't speak, she joins, merges with Violet not physically, but magically. For a moment, Violet sees through her eyes. Through time, 1,000 possibilities flash. A world broken by her power. A world saved. By her death, a world where Xaden holds her ashes. A world where Andarna dies in her place. And finally, a world where she chooses neither. Where she binds the power without. It's destroying herself. But it will cost her something. She doesn't know what. Only that it must be. Given willingly, she calls the magic. Not lightning, not time. Something new. A fusion it swirls around her. And the battlefield goes still. Even the Venin hesitate. Violet steps forward. Eyes glowing with something no human should ever carry. This gate is mine, she says, and I'm closing it. She slams her hands to the ground. The ley lines shriek. Magic. Screams. And the convergence. Implodes. Not into her, into nothing. A perfect seal. A final one. Unbreakable. The cost. Her bond Andarna falls limp. Her light extinguished. Not dead, but dormant. The bond is sealed. Their connection faded to the thinnest thread. Tyrion lands beside her, nuzzling her shoulder. You chose, he says softly. She nods, tears blurring. Her vision, I chose to bind, not break. Later, as the smoke clears, Xaden finds her sitting in the ashes. She looks up. Do you still see me? He kneels, taking her hands. I see us, he whispers. The war is not over, but the Venin are fractured. The gates are sealed. And Violet Sorrengail, once the smallest rider, once the fragile girl with silver hair, has become something new. Not a weapon, not a god. A keeper of power, of choice, of oaths. Time does not heal everything, he remembers. The battle at Biscayeth is over. The gate is sealed. The convergence halted, but the scars remain. The ground is scorched. Trees whisper when the wind passes through. And the ley lines beneath the academy walls still thrum with the echo of Violet's choice. She walks alone in the early morning mist, not because she must, but because she needs to. After everything, silence is the only thing that feels honest. There are no more scrolls to translate, no more ancient riddles to untangle. For the first time since her name was called on conscription day, Violet isn't chasing anyone else's prophecy. She is the end of one, and maybe the beginning of another. It has been 3 months. The Venin haven't returned. Not openly, not in force. Their networks have fractured, their alliances splintered by fear. Rumors ripple across the continent like aftershocks, of a rider made of lightning, of a gate that devoured itself, of dragons kneeling where they once soared. Violet doesn't entertain them. She doesn't feel like the stories say. She feels tired, not defeated. It's changed. There is no going back. The girl who crossed the parapet died 1,000 times in the choices that followed. What remains is someone forged in war, loss, magic, and love. Someone who carries history in her blood and power in her silence. Terran is always nearby, but he doesn't speak as often now. Their connection is still strong, old, steady, but he too senses the shift. "You've walked past prophecy," he says one night. "While stars flicker across the sky, even we do not know what lies beyond that." She leans back against his dark flank. "That's the point," she murmurs. "We write it now." Andarna sleeps. Not in the usual sense. She's entered a suspended state. Her golden light dimmed to an ember. It was the only way to save her. The magic they shared burned too bright, too fast, and in binding the convergence, Violet severed. What made their bond function like others? She visits the young dragon every day, talks to her, reads, listens to the silence. Somewhere deep inside, she believes Andarna still hears her, still remembers her, and that one day, she wake. Xaden remains at her side, not as a shadow, but as a partner. Their love is no longer edged with fear of the future or questions of fate. It's quiet now, steady earned. There are moments when he reaches for her, hand, and she doesn't flinch. Moments when she cries and he doesn't try to stop it only, pulls her closer and lets her fall apart in the safety of his arms. Moments when the world feels too fragile to hold. Everything they've survived, and still, they choose each other anyway. Brennan returns to leading the rebuild. Rebellion, it's no longer a fringe force. With the Scythe crippled and its leaders fractured, the riders who remain have begun to merge with the rebel cause, not for ideology, but survival. What started as treason has become necessity. They look to Violet. Not as a commander, not even as a hero, but as a compass. Because she did the one thing no one else could, she held the storm and didn't let it consume her. One morning, she receives a letter, unmarked, delivered by Dragon. Inside, a map, old, burned along the edges, but unmistakably showing something new. Another node, another gate, hidden deeper than any archive. As recorded, a message is scrawled beneath in a hand she doesn't. Recognize you closed one door, but they are learning. The next one won't open, will tear. Violet stares at the parchment, her breath slow. Even she doesn't panic, she doesn't cry. She remembers, she calls Tiern, readies her blade, leaves a note for us, then walks into the morning fog like the storm hasn't passed, only shifted because power never disappears. It just waits. In Violet Sorrengail. She knows how to wait too, in the skies above. The dragons stir, wings spread wide, eyes narrow, and though Andarna sleeps, one golden eyelid flutters once, a flicker, a whisper, a promise. The story is not over. It's only just begun. What does it mean to hold power and not be broken by it? That question pulses at the center of Onyx Storm, Rebecca Yarros' most explosive and soul-racking installment yet. Across storms of magic and the blood-wrought ruins of war, Violet. Sorrengail doesn't just rise, she transcends. But what makes this story remarkable isn't the scale of her power, it's the cost of it. Because Yarros doesn't offer us a savior wrapped in perfection. She offers a woman fractured, burdened, terrified, and learning. A woman who doesn't ask for greatness but chooses it when it would be easier not to. And through that choice, Onyx Storm becomes more than a fantasy. It becomes a mirror. From the beginning, the book draws a sharp line between strength and survival. Violet has always been underestimated. Small, fragile, unassuming. But in this sequel, her greatest weapon isn't her bonded dragons or even her lightning-infused magic. It's discernment. She learns when to listen, when to question, when to lean on others. And perhaps most importantly, when to let go. Whether it's her bond with Andarna, her control over the convergence, or the stories others have written about her destiny. Violet evolves by understanding that power must be guided, not gripped too tightly. Yarros crafts this arc with precision. At every turn, Violet is forced to confront dualities, duty versus autonomy, prophecy versus choice, love versus fear. And through it all, she chooses agency. Over and over again, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. And then there's the magic. So often in fantasy, magic is a tool, a weapon, a blessing, a curse. But in Onyx Storm, magic becomes relationship. It's not a thing Violet uses. It's a force that responds to her integrity. Her bond with Andarna is not transactional, symbiotic, ever-shifting, alive. Her link to the ley lines isn't just power, it's responsibility. It's history. She is not just a wielder of magic. She's a steward of it. And in a world where those who seek to control power always end up destroying others with it, Violet's story becomes a meditation on restraint, transformation, and balance. Of course, no reflection would be complete without Xaden Ryerson. His arc in Onyx Storm is quieter than in Fourth Wing, but no less profound. He shifts from a warrior, driven by vengeance, to a partner grounded in trust. Where others pull away from Violet's growing power, Xaden draws closer not to control, but to anchor. His love is not ornamental, it's functional, vital. He becomes the place where Violet can be soft, not weak, but unguarded, and in a book filled with magical storms and ancient prophecies. That might be the most powerful kind of magic, but beyond the characters, beyond the dragons, beyond even the convergences and collapsed cities, Onyx Storm is about legacy. What do we do with the power we inherit? Do we repeat the mistakes of the past? Or do we carve new paths, even when we're not sure where they lead? Violet answers that question not with speeches, but with sacrifice. She doesn't reject her past, but she refuses to be defined by it. Her mother's rigid control, her academy's brutal meritocracy, the rebels' cause. The scribe's truths, she listens to them all, and then she chooses her own damn way. She becomes, literally, the storm that breaks the cycle. But she also becomes the eye of it, calm, composed, centered. That duality is what makes this book linger in the chest long after the final page. And then there's the dragons. Oh, the dragons. Tyrn with his ancient wisdom and steady rage. Andarna, young and burning with untapped potential. The very bond between writer and dragon is transformed in this book. It's no longer just about combat or flight. It's about coexistence, intimacy, mutual evolution. Yarros gives us a world where dragons kneel. But not because they are tamed, because they believe, because they remember in the end. Onyx Storm teaches us this. Power is not about dominance. Prophecy is not a prison. And transformation is not always pretty. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is not to wield magic, but to carry it with grace, to love when we could close off, to wait when we could run, to see ourselves even when we no longer recognize what we've become. Violet Sorrengail does all of that and more. So as you close this chapter, this storm, ask yourself, what would you do with the power to break the world? Would you run? You rule? Or would you, like Violet, choose to bind it? Thank you for joining this in-depth cinematic breakdown of Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. If you found yourself swept up in the emotion, the power, and the transformation of this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. What moment hit you the hardest? What do you think comes next in Violet's journey? Until next time, ride fast, burn bright. And never forget, even storms remember.